Hello everyone, how are you doing? I first watched Durarara years ago and I can't really say why I did. It was on Netflix and I was looking for something to watch, so I did. I enjoyed it and had a good time watching it, though I have heard some people say that they found it a little boring, but I did not. As you probably know, Durarara is an anime with a very large cast who are all interconnected in some way. I'd say the main characters are Mikado Ryogamine and Salty Stoneson, as the story revolves around them the most and focuses on them a lot. I didn't really like Mikado, to be honest. Not that his story isn't worthwhile, but I found myself more interested in almost everyone else in the story. And I know part of his whole thing is wanting to have an interesting life, but for me personally, he was boring the whole time. I did like Salty though, and her relationship with Shinra in particular. I enjoy the way her journey is making friends and realizing that there's more to this kind of mortal life than she first anticipated. Izaya Orihara and Shizuo Hirojima are the notable standouts from the series, and that totally makes sense.
Well, what's up, Izaya? Didn't I tell you never to set foot in Ikebukuro again? You remember that, Izaya, don't ya? Izaya! Stay out of Ikebukuro!
Well, it seems Shizu-chan has found me. See ya!
Izaya!
If I were to ever meet Crispin Freeman, this is the line I'd want to hear. Izaya, what are you doing in Ikebukuro? And Ikebukuro itself is its own character in this story. I'm not sure I've watched something based in the real world in which the place they live occupied such a prominent role. And while Izaya is a sociopathic icon, and Shizuo is my favorite hot-tempered teddy bear, the van crew really stood out to me and I wanted to see more of them than I did. The van crew, so called because they're always hanging out in a van, consists of Saburo, the owner of the vehicle. Kyohei Karata is the de facto leader and just in general known as a stand-up guy and a good fighter. He was also my anime crush for Durarara. You might think it'd be Shizuo or even Izaya, but that's just not how it turned out. Erika Karasawa and Walker Yamazaki are very close, bonded by their shared obsession with anime and manga. The fictional world interests them more than the real one, and I particularly enjoyed the episode where they can't find each other, and when they finally find each other they like dance in the street. I just found that to be so sweet and wholesome. This little group form their own little gang and are like family to each other, I think. They're like the definition of found family. I believe that they join any established gang that Kyohei thought would be a good fit for them, that the rest of them would be pretty much happy to follow his judgment in most situations. And there's evidence that the larger community feels this way about him too, because his joining the Dollars gives the organization credibility and him leaving the group takes it away. He's also established enough that Izaya would give him his own little nickname.
But I'd be lying if I told you I wasn't at all curious as to who's behind this organization. Just between you and me, I've got my suspicions on who that guy may be. I bet you anything it's that asshole who started calling me Dota-chin.
And I was very impressed by Erika and Walker's rope tying skills. Just look at those knots. Where did they learn to do that? Just because they're otaku doesn't mean they don't have fun, eh?
Oh, come on. It's no fun at all if you don't get to torture them a little first. Here, you can pick any of these books you want.
And then we'll torture you exactly like they do in the book.
I just imagine this quartet gets into a whole bunch of shenanigans, just rolling with whatever happens and making the best of it. I would have loved to see more of the dynamic that exists between all of them, because aside from Walker and Erika, they do all seem quite different from each other. Kyohei is such a good, helpful guy, right? Erika calls him one of the most helpful, amazing guys she's ever met in her life. So much so that characters like him are not even in manga anymore. And we see that throughout the series, with Mikado even taking a moment to note what a great guy Kyohei is, that he's the kind of person you would look up to. Him and the whole Van gang are the kind of people who would do a bad thing for good reasons, like they would get into a fight in order to help someone who was being persecuted. Remember Walker even poured gasoline on someone and was fully ready to set them on fire? And that's pretty intense. I also got the feeling that maybe he does just like to start fires. So it's a very interesting mix of individuals. Kyohei definitely enjoys a good fight, and I remember in a flashback he wanted to fight Shizuo, but I think he learned that that was not a good idea and can't understand why anyone would challenge Shizuo, and I feel the same way. Challenging Shizuo is just not worth the hospital bills. It says a lot about Kyohei's character that after he gets hit by a car and ends up in a coma, the hospital is filled with people who are concerned about him, and everyone who hears the news of what happened to him is saddened by it, genuinely concerned for his well-being. And I think this all-round good guyness, and how he's always giving advice to the younger ones and watching out for them, and also being good at fighting and willing to do the kind of morally grey things for the right reasons, is why he ended up becoming the one who was closest to my heart instead of Shizuo, who is probably my usual type. Or Izaya, because I can fix him. Now that I've mentioned Kyohei's experience in the hospital, let's compare that to Izaya's. I genuinely felt bad for him. After he got stabbed and ended up in the hospital, the only person who might possibly visit him in order to check up on him was Shinra. But Shinra was otherwise occupied, and I'm not sure he would have visited Izaya if he wasn't on that trip with Salty. Because Shinra was the closest thing Izaya had to a friend, and that didn't stop him from messing with Salty and just being all around unpleasant. He loves humans, but he's shitty to them. Can you imagine being in a hospital after being stabbed and the only person who comes to visit you is trying to kill you? And you yourself feel like it's more likely that someone will come and kill you than check to see how you're doing. For someone who loves humans so deeply, does he truly have a real connection with a single one? Maybe his sisters, perhaps?
Humans are magnificent! I can't believe I ever doubted it! Magnificent! Magnificent!
I don't get whatever it is you're flipping out about. All I know is you're lower than dirt.
Fine by me! Go ahead and hate me all you want. I'll keep on loving you, obsessively, irrationally, desperately. I love humanity! I love every one of you!
I've read that Izaya's character has more depth and reasoning for the actions he takes in the source material, so maybe I'll take a gander at that someday to gain a greater understanding of who he is and why he does the things that he does. Can you imagine how much joy he could create if his experiments focused on what people would do in really positive situations instead of really negative ones? Man really be using his powers for evil. In an anime in which the supernatural is firmly established, Shizuo is a human man who just has super strength, and of course there is an explanation given in the anime.
I couldn't help myself. When I got mad, my body just started to move on its own. And each time it happened...
A normal person's brain limits their strength, because if you didn't hold back, you destroy your muscles and bones. But your brain behaves differently. It lets your body go wild. It's a mysterious wonder like no other.
I've wrecked my body 1,000 times now, and each time I come back stronger. Shinra once said, "You know what? Screw what he said. I come back tougher every time."
And this here is proper anime logic. Does Izaya's hatred and rejection for Shizuo come from his inability to explain why he is so unbelievably strong? Because he's constantly doing these experiments to pick apart the human psyche, the human experience, and figure things out, but this thing that Shizuo can do can't be figured out. He's an anomaly in the natural system. And I think perhaps also jealousy that Shizuo displays such a blatant, inhuman characteristic and yet has tons of friends and loved ones, which Izaya himself does not have.
I guess it's good you and Tanaka got to be buds.
Guess so. But we ended up going to different high schools. Then I met that bastard. And I haven't had any peace since then, goddammit!
Take her easy. I bet he's all alone, wishing he had friends like ours.
Despite causing physical harm to a lot of people and vending machines and lampposts, people still really like him. I think Izaya has a whole bunch of jealousy and envy all mixing together. Like when he finds out that everyone got together for Hot Pot, and so he tried to share one with Namie, and she rejected his offer, so he had Hot Pot for one. Makes me sad, but he does do this to himself. He's friends with Shinra, and if he had made some different choices in his life, could have been invited to their home for a meal. I have a sneaking suspicion that Shizuo isn't the only one who doesn't want to break bread with Izaya or Ihara. But he ends the series getting out of Ikebukuro just like Shizuo has been telling him to do. Despite his temper, Shizuo is clearly a good guy. He doesn't want to fight, but people just make him so damn angry and he just can't help it.
You dreadlock piece of... What the hell, man? My shirt. My little brother gave this shirt to me. You guys are dead!
In high school, people wanted to fight him just to make a name for themselves, and that caused him a lot of stress. And so he dyed his hair blonde to stand out, and so everyone knew not to mess with that blonde-haired kid. At the start of the series, you'd think that no one would mess with him, but people repeatedly do, and he just loses control of his temper and his strength, and I think maybe he should take up meditation or yoga or something. Because he does feel bad, right? He feels regret for his intense temper, especially when it affects his brother Kasuga, who is the opposite in terms of temperament. And he blames himself for it. Because he had this big emotional outburst during their childhood, Kasuga went the opposite direction and had very low-level reactions. I like how even though we don't see too many interactions between the brothers, it's clear that they care about each other a lot. The way that Shizuo dresses like a bartender because his baby brother gave him the clothes, it's very sweet, and also this outfit is not what I would associate with a bartender outfit, but maybe it's different in Ikebukuro. Despite Izaya constantly arranging to put him in tricky, negative situations that could result in him doing a truly bad thing, like when he convinced that little Yakuza daughter that Shizuo wanted to kill her father, and so she went after him to kill him in order to protect her father. Of course Shizuo doesn't do anything to hurt her because she's just a little girl, and his soft heart wins out in the end, and he totally wins her over in the end, undoing all of Izaya's meddling. He just makes a huge impact on people without even realizing it, like he did with the Russian assassin as well, and with Salty. And he has this really humble opinion of himself because of his crazy temper. He's just out here changing hearts and minds and leaving a tangible mark all over Ikebukuro. I also enjoyed his friendship with Shira, and how delighted the elementary school Dr. Kishitani was to come across such an interesting specimen. It makes a lot of sense because he's that kind of scientist. And I like that we saw that Shinra tried to bring Izaya and Shizuo together so that they could all be friends, but Shizuo is clearly a good judge of character and disliked him instantly. And as for Izaya, was he hurt by Shizuo's instant rejection and then formed a hatred for his inhumanness? Did he want to be Shizuo's friend? I am genuinely not sure, though I think it's a pretty safe assumption that Izaya would have wanted to use Shizuo for his strength as his muscle, and would try to manipulate him like he tries to manipulate everyone. There's a lot of fun characters in Durarara, and if I were to talk about all of them, we'd be here for ages. So I'm going to end things here. I hope you enjoyed my video. That wasn't really about anything in particular. I did say that it was just some thoughts about Durarara. I hope you have a good day, a good week. See you in the next one. I'm Kaylin. Bye.